that's led to the most unequal job and economic crisis in modern history. And the crisis is only deepening. It's not getting better, it's deepening. The bottom line is this: we're in a national emergency. We need to act like we're in a national emergency. The bottom line is this: we're in a national emergency. We need to act like we're in a national emergency.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to The Right Side with Doug Billings. Thank you very much indeed for watching and subscribing to the YouTube channel. We're also over on Rumble. Make sure you find us on all of the social media platforms that are out there. We are available also by audio podcast on every one of the major podcast platforms across the planet. So make sure, please, that you join us. Ladies and gentlemen, we are in a moment of crisis. You heard it right there from Biden himself. A moment of crisis in the world and in the United States. Joe is right. We are in a moment of crisis. We're in a moment of national nightmare, ladies and gentlemen. He's not lying to you, and it's him that is the crisis. It's the Communist Socialist Party that's the crisis. 4 days in to the Biden nightmare, and he's done more damage than any president has done in 4 years. His bad decisions make Jimmy Carter and Barack Hussein Obama look like success stories. In just 4 days, he's become the worst administrator of the United States. And you notice that I say administrator. Not going to use the P word with regards to Joe. He might be an administrator, but in my opinion, he's not a president. 4 days, going on 5, 100,000 jobs lost. Poof! Just like that. China now has access to our power grids. Lloyd Austin, Biden's nominee for the defense secretary, wants to actually, quote, look in to having China help with our national security. You can't make this stuff up. The Keystone Pipeline, done, over, canceled, 9,000 union jobs killed with that decision. And relationships with Canada all the worse for it because it affects them as well. He's rejoined the Paris Climate Accord, where the United States is going to be subject to repeated advantage, being taken advantage of unfairly by unreciprocal regulations, trade deals, and agreements, and not a darn thing we can do about it. Absolutely outrageous and infuriating. Now the administration says we're going to codify abortion laws in this country. We're going to make it so it's even more difficult for anybody, including the Supreme Court, to do away with Roe v. Wade. Roe v. Wade, by almost any stretch, by almost any legal analysis, is bad legislation. In that clip that I just played you, he's talking about the economic devastation, Biden is, and this chaos that is engulfing the country and the world because of it. You see, because where America goes, the world goes. If we're in chaos, the world is in chaos. He's talking about the economic devastation that's caused by a year of wildly unnecessary economic shutdowns as caused by and cast upon us by the Communist Socialist Party. They are the ones who have wrecked the Trump economy. You see, anything that has Trump's name on it's got to be erased now. Even executive orders that lowered the price of insulin, gone. Just because Trump signed an executive order that lowered the cost of insulin. We are in the tomb, ladies and gentlemen. In the tomb. Giving trillions and trillions of dollars to foreign countries. I don't care what the country is. Representative Hunzinger said it well when he made that viral video on the steps of the Capitol. What are we thinking of? I mean, it's a nightmare that you can't escape from. I just know, though, that although we're in the tomb, It's going to be longer than 3 days, but we're going to come out of the tomb. We will again see the light in this country. There are millions of people in this country, including members of the lost Democratic Party that is now really the Communist Socialist Party. And there are people around the world who have written into this program, I can promise you, by the hundreds upon hundreds, who want and miss President Trump, who realize that America is the light of the world. And that's not an ego statement. That's not bragging. America is the light. And the light is now dimmed, but we will see hope, ladies and gentlemen. We will see hope. In the past 4 days, I know the 5 days have been brutal, crushing, nightmarish, as we watch Biden's inept, completely faltering, and almost zero leadership on any substantive pro-American, pro-world issues. Even the communist socialist embrace, the fake embrace they gave the military last week, especially the National Guard. It's all about optics. It's all about being part of a theater of politics. You'll remember that President Trump last year in America offered up the National Guard and said, just bring in the Guard. We can put an end to the chaos and the anarchy that was sweeping across America last summer. He offered it to the cities that were led and managed by members of the Communist Socialist Party because those are the cities where the problems were. Those cities led and managed by members of the Communist Socialist Party. Not one Republican city burned last year, ladies and gentlemen. But they've all declined it. They all declined that offer of the National Guard last year, right? The members of the Communist Socialist Party. And the savagery of the mob, the riots, the looting, the arson, the rape, and the murder, the toppling of statues, and the anarchy raged on. And still in some cities like Portland and others, it's continuing today. Antifa continues the chaos. Yet in Washington, D.C. last week, and even now, the National Guard announced we'll be staying on until March, which is an interesting date that you need to follow this program about, because March is key. And whether or not when we come out of the tomb, we have the resurrection of a new United States government based on how the Constitution was originally written. You see, up until 1933, Inauguration Day was always on March 4th. Another show, another topic, but it's interesting that the National Guard has been ordered to stay through March 4th and 5th. It's very interesting. But in Washington, D.C., the Guard was called up because the Communist Socialists were going to prevent this right-wing insurrection. The right-wing insurrection, the leftover idiocracy and the leftover, dirty patriotism of everyone who followed and admired President Trump. Well, the irony is rich in this. It's also abhorrent, and it's also tragic. The entire demonstration of force and power in D.C. was catastrophically lacking last summer as the Communist Socialist Party let America burn. And why weren't troops called out last summer? Why was the National Guard refused to come into the cities that were under fire and burning by the Communist Socialist? Because all of last year, all of 2020 was a crisis that the Communist Socialist Party just couldn't waste. You see, we never let a good crisis go to waste if we're a member of the Communist Socialist Party. Not only did they cause the crisis, shutting the economy down, letting people burn it, not speaking up against it, they fanned the flames of the crisis, ladies and gentlemen. Kamala Harris and Joe Biden sponsored websites that raised money to bail out anarchists so that they could continue the rampage and that they could continue the carnage. Members of the celebrity class did the same thing, treasonous and treacherous. The Communist Socialists used the military when it's their own purpose that are intended to benefit from it. It suited them. So they wanted to produce this little movie last week, right? It's like the movie could be called Conservative Insurrection. We have to fight the insurrection. Ladies and gentlemen, run. Conservatives everywhere on the loose, pillaging the Capitol, all encouraged by the President of the United States. Run, quick, hide. The movie's a fake. Everything they said is fake. Trump gave a speech on January 6th that was absolutely perfect. You see, Trump is famous for giving perfect speeches and conducting perfect telephone calls. Not once did he rile up the people by mentioning insurrection or rioting or looting. In fact, it was exactly the opposite. He implored them to be peaceful, but yet we know it was Antifa and Black Lives Matter and communist-socialist insurgents themselves that started the riot and the chaos at the Capitol. But Chuck Schumer, no. We're going to go ahead with a trial of impeachment of a civilian now, somebody who used to be the president, because of all of the insurrection that President Trump caused. Or if you're Schumer, it was because Trump caused the national erection. It's the same kind of movie, although you'd have to go into a private booth to see that one from Chuck Schumer. But here it is.
Make no mistake, there will be a trial, and when that trial ends, senators will have to decide if they believe Donald John Trump incited the erection.
Schumer on the floor. Yet they mock the media, the military, They mock the military in everything they do, making them sleep in parking garages and so forth. Now, I think the military are used to and trained to sleep in various conditions, and it might not have bothered them as much as the public. But they made a big deal about it, didn't they? The communist socialists. Oh my God, we're going to get to the bottom of this. It must be the conservatives that ordered them to stay in the garages. It's phony sympathy, just like it's phony support of the military. You had Jill Biden bringing out freshly baked chocolate chip cookies, Nancy Pelosi standing in front of the troops, all forced to stand there for staged events. They have no concern for the National Guard whatsoever. If they did, they would have put them to use last summer to quell the anarchy. But you see, they couldn't, because that didn't fit their narrative. That wasn't in the movie that was being produced. It's still not. Never let a good crisis go to waste. Their mantra, and by God, they didn't. They inflicted it upon us. And for those of you who are small business owners or people who have been furloughed, laid off, fired, reduced in force, whatever, it's them. The national crisis and the nightmare that we face is a direct result of the wildly unnecessary economic shutdowns that the communist socialists have thrust upon us. Staging things like that with the troops. They ought to be ashamed of themselves. If they had souls, they would be. And we have more troops in Washington, D.C. than we do in any Middle East hotspot around the world. Still think there's something going on there, ladies and gentlemen. I still think the military in action, doing things behind the scenes that we are yet of which unaware. They are staged. They want to make the Conservative Party look bad. Because, we're the prayerful, godly party who voices support of traditional American values, American exceptionalism. And you see, that's a threat to communist socialists. You can't put any of that before the state. Tom Cotton called it all out last year as well. Just one example of one person who said, give us the Guard, give us the National Guard. He wrote an op-ed about it. The number one ally of the Communist Socialist Party, the media, roundly criticized him for it. Cotton said, one thing above all else will restore order to our streets. An overwhelming show of force to disperse, to detain, and ultimately to deter lawbreakers. Nobody wanted to put it. The allies of the Communist Socialist Party, the media, pounced on him. The New York Times editorial board wouldn't print his opinion. CNN said he's just wrong. It's just absolutely wrong. He's putting black lives in danger when he says that. I mean, come on, USA Today. The military is abhorrent and dangerous. That's what they said. And remember, from day one of the Trump presidency, ladies and gentlemen, the Communist Socialists started the whole resist movement. Violent marches all across the country in cities led and managed again by the Communist Socialist Party and their resist movement. It wasn't about freedom and finding liberty. It was about total submission to the state. They couldn't handle the defeat at the polls. It wasn't like the French Revolution that you remember. I mean, look at those ladies right there walking around the streets with their automatic rifles and fighting against fascism. Something about those ladies right there and their guns. Well, I like that. I like that image a lot. But it's patriotic. It's what we do. It's fighting against these things. And the resist movement of the left was resist freedom. It was resist Trump. And we're above that. But you see what Trump did, right, last week. He's not even in Washington, D.C. anymore. He tells his hotel to open up. He's still, even now, taking better care of our troops than the Communist Socialist Party is. That's Trump's nature. And don't let anybody else tell you differently. He's a good man, called by God, and he is much better than what we're experiencing now. I think China, I mean, you talk about a country that has now been given, the lottery ticket. China right now, I've been saying that they're probably going to rename the Chinese New Year this year and call it the Year of the Golden Goose because of the benefits that Biden's going to give them. And I shouldn't even chuckle about it because it's so tragic, but it's true. You got ISIS making its comeback now. Bomb went off in Baghdad, 30 people killed over the weekend. All of this coming back to haunt us. The human caravans marching slowly towards America have begun again. And of course, we all know members of MS-13, drug dealers, child traffickers, and all sorts of others, every one of them illegal immigrants. And the Communist Socialists are going to give them amnesty. They're going to give them citizenship. They're going to give them the right to vote. Why? Because they're hoping they'll become part of their electoral base of criminals and anarchists. Biden is putting America last. And Biden, making it full clear to all of you ladies in the audience, he has no intention of honoring women's rights or God's divine intention for us as human beings, signing an executive order that will now allow transgender men to compete against naturally born, godly given women. Men are men and women are women, ladies and gentlemen. I don't know how much more simple it can be. No amount of surgery, no amount of drugs, hormones, or whatever, testosterone, estrogen, whatever, none of it is going to change that. You will always be a man, you will always be a woman. You might have surgery to aesthetically change things. Your soul is always going to be the way you were born. You can dress up in the opposite sex clothes, prance around, do whatever you want to do, but it will never make you a member of the opposite sex. And that's just the truth. Biden's executive order on that topic is not only an insult to women in sports, it's an insult to women everywhere, in every walk of life, in every occupation. It's an abomination in the eyes of God. And this is where we are, ladies and gentlemen, in this national nightmare. We're up against demonic forces here. Truly we are. In this country and around the world. The executive orders signed by Biden are not just bad legislation, they're immoral on multiple levels. Killing jobs and livelihoods of people, that's immoral. Destroying the America First doctrine that takes care of us and our people, that's immoral. Surrendering our control through strength stance against illegal immigration, whereby the terror of ISIS or others could reach our shores and our cities, is immoral. Enabling transgender atrocities to supplant the natural rights of God-given women is immoral. What the conservative movement is lacking, though, in my opinion, in the United States, is leadership. We need a conservative voice, one like this show provides, that takes the lead to engage in and support and convey the ideals that only the right side has. A belief in God and his divine providence in America as the light for all the world to see. And I can tell you that that is not an ego statement. Since this show started, I've received thousands of messages from around the world, and 99% of them love America, see America as the light, believe that where America goes, the world goes. And they have an undying love, they have an undying loyalty for President Trump. As God is my witness, I promise you that. Messages pour in from this country, but around the world. With our new reach and our global audience, we're blessed by that. And it's a sign of hope that I tell you that America is the light for people around the world. You see, they want their leaders to be like President Trump. Trump is now the template for leadership around the world. Loyal, patriotic leadership. For Americans, a third party is a death wish. Get your mind off of that, ladies and gentlemen, in America. Unless President Trump himself signs up for a third party, count me out, because it will divert votes, give more votes to the Communist Socialist Party, and it takes 10 to 15 years, logistically speaking, for a third party to become viable. I'm fully aware of the frustration that you have. We want a quick fix, and some of you think that creating this third party is the quick fix. There is no quick fix in any of this. We're in the tomb. We're going to have to wait and engage in determined prayer coupled with determined patriotism. But I'm here to tell you we're going to survive this thing. We're going to survive it together. Wherever you are, whether you're in the United States, in another country somewhere around the world, if you watch this program, you've got to engage in determined prayer and determined patriotism. You and I meet when we are engaged in determined prayer about all of this. Prayer is where we unite and where we have each other's back. We don't come on programs like this and undermine them. We support them. We support this message and the message of other conservative shows. We need to support each other. And that's why we need free will sponsorships to the GoFundMe page so that this message can continue. But it's true. Grassroots leadership is where we're lacking. We need people to run for the school boards, the local school boards. We need people to run for your county legislatures as good, solid Republican conservatives. Determined patriotism coupled with determined prayer. Prayer is, we know what prayer is. Determined patriotism means we do the hard work, and we realize there's no quick fix here. We root out the rhinos, get rid of the globalists, drain the swamp, do everything that Trump began. Don Jr. was right on January 6th when he gave the speech. Trump is the Republican Party. Don't abandon it. Root out the bad guys. Get rid of them. You see, I know number one priority for us as conservatives in the United States is voter fraud. We must fix it with determined prayer, determined patriotism. Fix the broken voting system because it is rigged. That's a real frustration because it's a real problem. So I understand your frustration. Third party's not the answer. Determined patriotism is with regards to rooting out the rhinos. The Republicans in name only must go. But there is hope, ladies and gentlemen, in the midst of all of this. For example, one story in particular was brought to my attention just the other day. And it comes from the Republican Party, of course, where you expect to find hope. One of the rising stars and the true rock stars in the Republican Party is the governor of South Dakota, Kristi Noem, and she's introducing legislation this week that will make it illegal to commit an abortion with regards to a pregnancy that has been diagnosed as a Down syndrome pregnancy. And this is absolutely wonderful news. Now, she's not the first governor to do this. Tennessee and a few other states have done similar things. I just found out that yet there's this other one, Kristi Noem, South Dakota, happening this week. And I happen to be the father of two wonderful sons. One is a typical young man, and the other one has Down syndrome. And I'm here to tell you that when people are faced with a prenatal diagnosis of Down syndrome, upwards of 95% of them opt for abortion. The elimination of an entire segment of our society, and they're beautiful people. You know, it's as if God gave them this extra chromosome. They have an extra chromosome. Trisomy 21 is the official term for Down syndrome. They have an extra 21st chromosome. And it's, for me, I've explained it as that's the divine chromosome that God himself has given these people. Because you see what it does is it takes away their venom, their prejudices, their hate. They have none of that. They're welcoming of all people. They take joy in the simple. They find wonder in all of life. They're almost always happy. It's as if God said, here's how you should be. Here's how I intended you to see this life and each other. Down syndrome can be a blessing if you would just let it, just like any one of the challenges that you face, any challenge, any adversity, any tragedy in your life, if you see it as a potential blessing, because that's what these things really are, every challenge, adversity, every test and trial is simply a blessing waiting to be born. And if you can discover that and look at it that way and reflect on it, you'll discover gratitude. Thank you, God. Thank you for allowing me to go through this test and this fire. Because as I reflect on it, as I look back on it, look at the blessings that it's brought me. It's brought me closer to you, closer to other people. It's let me see life in a different way, whatever. That's gratitude, you see. And grateful people are the happiest people on the entire planet. So in the midst of this time together in the tomb, so to speak, let's engage with the determined prayer for each other, determined patriotism and doing the hard work, and looking to everything in life that comes our way as a blessing waiting to be born. That's the difference between us and the left, the difference on the right side and the communist socialists. We do not melt down. We do not give up. We do not cry. We do not whine and complain. We get up, dust ourselves off, and we engage in determined patriotism. Ladies and gentlemen, you're blessed. And thank you for giving me the honor of subscribing to the show and following it and watching it. Thank you for the blessing that all of that is. Thank you for the comments, whether it's on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, wherever. I try to get back to as many as I can. Thank you. We will meet again right here on the right side. I promise you that. Don't forget to stop by the GoFundMe page if you can. God bless you, ladies and gentlemen. God bless America. God bless the world and everyone in it. Cheers. Hi, everybody. Welcome to The Right Side. I'm here on the set of the show, and I want to remind you of a friend of mine who's a very good friend of this program, the Commander's Artist. He's responsible for the logos that you see for the program and the incredible art of American patriots and now international patriots throughout the world. TheCommandersArtist.com. Go check him out. When you pay on PayPal, make sure that you make mention of my name and the show, The Right Side with Doug Billings. All of the prices on the site are ready for you. They're at your disposal. The artwork is beautiful, and you're going to like what you see over at thecommandersartist.com. He's the personal commissioned artist of General Mike Flynn, and his artwork is absolutely phenomenal. Make sure you head over there and check him out.